Hello, improvers. Justin Winstead, the improver coach, coming to you. Have you ever heard the phrase, you're either going into a storm, you're in one, or you're coming out of one? Well, that's really true in life, but it's not just our personal life and the trials that we may face with family members, friends, or health and finances, but this is true in business as well. Because in business, we obviously have our highs and lows, and sometimes we refer to those highs and lows in another way, which we call gaps in business. And the thing is, in business and in leadership, you're going to run into times where you have gaps. And there are a couple of questions that you can ask during those times of those gaps. And then there are three different ways that you can respond. And the questions you ask and your responses to those questions will determine so much about your income and your impact. It's going to have so much to do with your peace and your productivity. It's going to affect what happens in the boardroom and at home at the living room. This is a really important topic today. Let's dive right in and let's see how we can improve our leadership ability during the gaps. Again, when we say gaps, what we're saying is that we're going to be in these in-between phases where sometimes there's feast and sometimes there's famine. Sometimes the leads are coming in and the revenue is good. Sometimes it's not. And during that time, there are two questions that we can ask. One question is, how do I get? In other words, like, I've got need here. I'm in this phase of lowness and their scarcity mindset can creep in and you see what's missing. You start focusing on the gap and you don't look at what you've already gained. You forget gratitude and you begin to think about greed instead. And maybe it's not just greed. Maybe it's just the need. Like you just focus on the need and you begin to ask, how can I get? What do I need to do to get right now? The other question you could ask instead is, how do I give? What can I contribute to others? In fact, you want me to tell you a little secret? Whatever it is you need most right now, go give that away. I know, sounds crazy, huh? Are you discouraged? You feeling a little depressed? You feel like you could use a word of hope and inspiration? Go give that to somebody else. Now, I know they tell us that we can't pour out of an empty glass. I get it. But I'm going to tell you that whatever it is that you need, if you go and serve somebody else in that way, it's amazing how that returns back to you. So if you need encouragement, give it. Is money tight? This is going to be a tough one for some of you. But if money's tight, go be generous. And I mean with your money, even though it may be limited, even though you may say, how can I be generous when I don't have any right now? Find a way to be generous and serve and give in that. So think about what you need. Do you need some wisdom? Do you need to hang out with some friends? Do you need just you want somebody to be with you? Just go be with somebody else. Give them presence. And so when you think about what can you give instead of what can you get, the whole paradigm changes, the mood changes. You start planting seeds which are able to be watered and then the harvest comes back. Those two questions are going to shape a lot of your paradigm. But then under that, there are three identities that you can take or three actions that you can take that are really going to also determine how you weather the storm. Are you going to thrive through it? Are you barely going to survive through it? Or you're not going to make it at all? So what are these three labels that you could have added based on the way that you're being and doing? So the first one would be this idea of being a diminisher. A diminisher is someone who takes, they consume, they're negative, they drain resources. And when I say resources, they are a consumer of money and of whatever is available that could be used for others or for good. They're just a taker in that they bring down the value of their environment. Those are diminishers. And you've known people like this, and at some time in your life, you've been this person. I've been this person. Have you ever been around somebody that they're like a black hole where it's just like everything, it seems like they just suck it into them and then drag it down. It's like Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law is it can go wrong, it will. Well, it's almost like they're Murphys sometimes. They come in and things just go down. And we've had that negative energy before, but we do not want to be diminishers. During our own time of trials and struggles, we can't be one that makes things worse for everybody else just because we're perceiving them to be worse for ourselves. That's one identity. The second identity would be this idea of just being an exister. An exister is just one who exists. They're passively occupying space. Many times they're just drifting. They're spending a lot of time in reactivity on it. The existers are just observing. They're not necessarily dragging things down, but they're just not participating in it all. They're overlooked many times. They're just there. And people do this sometimes. We talk a lot about learning contentment And contentment is very valuable for the leader, but sometimes people, in their effort to be content, or maybe it's not even an effort, they just learn to be content, they actually fall into being complacent. And when you become complacent, that's a problem, because now you're just taking up space, you're taking up room, you're just coasting. And whereas diminishers bring down the value of their environment, existers don't really affect their value at all. And you don't want to be that. It's better to be an exister than a diminisher, but neither one of those are really the great option, the best option for you. The best option is for you to be what we call an improver. Now, an improver, instead of being one who takes or just exists, they're one who grows, make progress. They strive towards being better. And so even in the middle of the storm, they're looking for ways to strengthen themselves and strengthen others. Instead of diminishing value or not affecting the value of their environment at all, they actually enhance the value. So get this, in the middle of their storms that they're going through, they're actually supporting others in that. They're actually lifting up others in the middle of their own storm. When you go through gaps in your business financially, with emotion, with your time, with just the overall excitement and morale, you have to think through this. Okay, this is a gap. Things aren't where I want them to be. But am I going to make them worse and sit around and whining about how bad it is? That's only going to make it worse. That's going to bring down the value. Are you going to stick your head in the sand, pretend like it's not as bad as it is? Or are you going to try to just ignore it? Or are you just going to cross your fingers under the table and hope that it just passes over without you having to do anything? Or are you going to be an improver? Are you going to get to work? Are you going to start making things happen? Or are you going to say, you know what, I'm going to look at what is good, even though there are some gaps. I'm going to focus on some gains. I'm going to focus on what's good around me. And then I'm going to continue to get better through this. And then as I get on the other side of the gap, not only can I hold my head high because of the way I behaved and led and performed during the gap phase, but actually I'm stronger as a result. And that makes the other side of the gap even better. That makes the mountaintop, after going through the valley in such a healthy way, the mountaintop is more enjoyable. So you were created for positive impact. You were created to have an influence on those around you, even whenever you're going through hard times. You've been given all you need to be an improver. You've been given all you need to not only make it through your own challenges and weather your own storms and trials, but to help others during those exact times. You can count it joy because of who you are. So today, identify as an improver. If you don't know what this means, or if you don't feel like you're healthy in this area of your life, we're here to serve you along the way. Just get in touch with us and help us help you, or let us know how we can help you to unlock your potential. We want you to grow yourself because the world needs you. We need you to be an improver. We don't need diminishers and existers any longer. We need people like you to step up and say, I'm going to better myself so that I can make the world a better place.